Hello, my dear friends of hot coffee and good news. Generally, news, I hope that you are armed and dangerous. I definitely am. 4 spoons of sugar make wonders with me in the morning. All right, let's jump in. We have some very funny news. They go straight into the Russian cringe section straight away, I bet. So, Russian RIA Novosti, which is terror Russian, like the most honest, the most trustworthy source of content. I don't know. So they say that Russia is going to introduce limits for transportation for the diplomats from unfriendly countries that already introduced such limits to Russian diplomats in the Schengen zone in the European Union. Again, this goes straight into the Russian cringe section because I don't know how else European diplomats will survive this. Oh my God, they won't be allowed to travel freely around the beautiful and gorgeous terror Russian land. My God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, dear European diplomats. Then we have fighters of the 39 separate brigade of the coastal defense of Ukraine who shot 3 Russian kamikaze drones using the Mistral air defense system. Let's check it out.
Єсть! Час 23
Єй.
часа з копійками. Пуск шахіда.
23
По шахіду.
2300, they launched missile
Єсть!
and another
Єсть! А вторий!
terror
за
Russian
сьогодні,
Shahed
красавчики.
is dead. And basically the lives saved, my friends. Mistral is a manpad used to intercept aerial threats. It has a range between 500 and 6,000 meters, maximal altitude 3,000 meters, which is around 10,000 feet. And it weighs only 24 kilograms, which is like 50 pounds. Not much, compared to Soviet Igla that I had opportunity to to touch, not to operate, to touch in my brigade. It was cool. Totally insane. Hello, my friend. Also, Newman, Jilkia, and Katya. Oh my God, you will be Katya from now on. Thank you so much for being with us. And Steve Sane and everyone else, Croupier, Jose, Beep, and Bones, and also Jason, Ozzy Welder. Hello, my friends. Team Lawrence, and everyone else. Let's move on. So we have some really cool news coming from Google, because Google will gift Ukrainian students a whole year with Gemini AI Pro. So they provide students from 18 years old and older an annual free subscription to the most powerful functions in Gemini and Notebook LM, which will include a lot of different functions: deep research, VO3 for creating educational videos and everything else, Jules, the programming assistant, and 2 terabytes of cloud storage for all the educational materials, everything else, projects, pictures in the Google Drive. Oh my God, I'm also older than 18 years old. I only had birthday like a couple of months ago. So it's really cool. Thank you so much, dear Google. Thank you so much for your support for our students. It's incredibly important. Tim Lawrence, how did you sleep? I slept. Yeah, that's what I can say. Bridget, heard Ukraine gave Putler a nice birthday fireworks yesterday. Yes, we will talk about it in just a second. So Belgium manufacturer of air defense systems, Thales, I think it's called Thales in Belgium, reports that over its secret objects, more and more UAVs are being spotted. The company said that they can use different jamming devices and electronic warfare measures in order to block the systems, for the control systems for those drones. But the problem is, according to the law, they cannot do that, unfortunately, according to the CEO of this company, Alan Kevrin. So another reason they cannot shoot the drones down is that they can fall down and traumatize people. So that's that's not really good. And some more Russian cringe for you, my dear friends. Putin called decisions that he took in February 2022, basically when he invaded Ukraine, he called those decisions right and timely. So basically, turning 400,000 Russians into fertilizer, making 700,000 more of them basically injured and disabled, losing almost all his freaking arsenal that remained from the times of the Soviet Union, in exchange for literally miserable gains. Basically, I don't know, spreading big Russian legs for China, creating a lot of problems in the economics, which he will not even understand how to solve after 5 years, probably, if not more, after ending the war, and basically becoming an outcast, a despicable and absolutely despised person and country for the whole civilized world. That is absolutely amazing and incredible. What exactly he wanted to achieve with that, I have no idea. Mabahandula, do you know? Mabahandula doesn't know, and he's a goose. So, switching to the rest of the news, we have some very, very cool messages coming from let's say anonymous sources, all right, because some anonymous sponsor secretly ordered 1,000 trucks, Mercedes-Benz Cetros, for Ukrainian defenders. I don't have to tell you how much the vehicles are needed nowadays in on the Ukrainian front. Because those things are basically disposable. They are basically require change every couple of weeks, especially in the area with high presence of Russian artillery, high presence of Russian drones. So that is just huge. 1,000 trucks for Ukrainian defenders. That's something absolutely necessary and crucial. So again, the anonymous sponsor, whoever you are absolutely legendary. Please make yourself known somehow, so we would at least know whom to thank. All right, Brigitte, German trucks. I agree, they're very good. We have some footage showing Russian bike becoming better. Like, I know, when the footage starts and you see like this first person view of a drone flying and like yum 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 yum. All right, what do we have now? All right, there's like Russian Vatnik biker. All right, Vatnik biker, and he becomes better instantly. What amazes me though, you see like that fire coming from the bike. Like where the hell did they get the fuel? I mean, there's a lot of fuel judging from the flames. A very good, again, firework for Putin's birthday. The dude basically sacrificed himself. Trump, for the 8th time, said that he is very, very disappointed with Putin during meeting the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Carney. Mr. Trump said that the peace deal on the Middle East is already close to signing, which he cannot unfortunately say about Ukraine. And he said that he thought that that would be some of the easy cases because Trump liked to brag about his good relations with Putin, and basically he said that the war and everything else could have been solved very easily. And he said that he's very, very disappointed in Putin because he thought that it would be easy to solve. But turns out that probably it's even more difficult than on the Middle East. Who would have thought? Who would have thought, my dear friends? I will show you one thing real quick, all right? Where is it? I'll show you real quick. So that's basically Russians in the late 80s, early 90s, Russians buying so-called bush legs, all right, coming from the United States of America. I'm sure that people from the United States, those who don't sleep yet, they remember those times. There was an insane crisis in the Soviet Union, in the terror Russia specifically, and as, for example, as a sign of a good gesture, the United States provided terror Russia with cheap chicken, all right, with cheap chicken meat, which basically in that big and strong and mighty and yada yada Soviet Empire was probably the only source of protein for the population, all right? American chicken coming from the United States to Russia. And they ate the chicken, all right, they wiped their mouths and they said, thank you very much, we will be waging our war now. All right, guys, you saved the wrong people, all right? You saved the wrong population. Those slaves don't even understand the necessity to say thank you, to be... They don't have memory, all right? They don't remember good things that you do to them. You saved the wrong people, all right? And instead of that, it would be much better, of course, to help Ukraine more. But looking at that picture that was made, like, I don't know, like judging from the prices, I think early 90s, all right? I feel such a mix of emotions because they literally don't remember anything good that you do to them. That is one thing. But another thing, you should not expect to turn them into, all right, to turn them into democratic, good people with things like that, with feeding them, with bringing them Hollywood movies, and yada yada, because they don't appreciate it. They will be eating that, they will be consuming that, and they will be murdering you for basically providing them with all that goodness, all right? That's something you should always remember. They were raised like that for centuries. You cannot change it. With any good intentions, with friendship, with anything else, it's not possible. Ukrainians are telling you this right now, right? Because unfortunately we lived next to this despicable wasteland called Terror Russia, earlier Moscovia, for centuries. we know what we're talking about. You will not change their mind like that by hugging them, patting their heads, saying, guys, you can be good people, you can be democratic, actually, we can live in peace. Scorpions playing those beautiful songs and stuff like that that they had to rewrite, all right, in 2022, Wind of Change and everything. Guys, it doesn't work like that. Punch the fucking faces. How to say it? Abstractly speaking, right? When the bully attacks you, the only way to fight back, to punish the bully and save your life is basically respond accordingly, all right? That's the only thing that you can do. And that's the only way to deal properly with the terror Russians, no matter who they are, all right? No matter like their age, their gender, whatever. They were raised like that, and they are all the same, except for several people that I can count on both fingers of my hands. Sanction Ivan, for example, I hope that he's doing great. Other than that, oh my God, it's so... It's just so you could understand, all right? Don't trust in their good intentions. They will never be your friends. They will always fuck you up. They will always violate agreements like they always do throughout their history. They will always commit atrocious. Atrocities. They will always target civilian people and their homes and everything else, because that is what makes Russia Russia. That's what makes them themselves, all right? And I will be talking about this every single day, so you could understand the reality finally. And I'm very, very happy that at least 99% of our family there in the chat understands this, that the only way of dealing with the terror Russians is basically responding asymmetrically to their violence, all right? Unfortunately, that's the only thing. What do you think it takes to change the Russian population into normal people with normal values? Literally, the only thing that actually works is taking them from Russia, bringing them directly to Europe or United States, let them see the way the people live, let them follow the rules, and basically that's it. The only thing that can change, for example, corrupted Russian system is if you remove Russians from that system. That's all. One of my ideas, for example, back in the days when we had the same problem with corruption in Ukraine was to hire, for example, Deutsche Polizei, right? They would not take bribes. They would do their job instead of our corrupted cops of early 2000s. Yeah, they would do their job. They would not take bribes, and everything will work. When corruption is deeply rooted into society, you gotta probably remove the society from the system. That's the only thing that works. And same works with Russians. For example, take a look at Sanction Divan. Of course, it takes probably some talent, some genes. I have no idea to be born like that. Okay, to be born a proper human being. But generally. Sanction Divan started in Ireland when he was a kid, and he knows how normal world lives, all right? How people in civilized society should live, should behave, and basically that's one of the reasons why he left Russia, and I hope that he will be absolutely fine. But you gotta bring them to the civilized world, not try to build the civilized world in the completely rotten society, in their completely rotten country, because it will not work. There is one thing though, because when you bring a lot of Russian into the civilized society, they start spreading this rotting inside of that society. We're talking about international Russian mafia, Russian spies, and everything else. All that goodness that Russian terrorists usually bring with themselves wherever they go. So that's another thing. I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question, my dear friend, but probably it requires a bit more than like that bald talking head on the screen. Dobry dzień, Pol Poliko. Dobry dzień, bardzo miło zobaczyć. Bardzo miło, że jesteście tutaj. Let's say. Let's return to our review. So, yesterday, the terror Russian parliament ratified the international agreement about the military cooperation between the terror Russian Federation and Cuba. So the psychosis, according again to the information that you see on your screens, and I'm traditionally translating for you from Ukrainian language, from also terror Russian language, the psychosis is growing because of the possible delivery of the Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Again, guys, another question, like how will those missiles be launched? How much time will it take to build the necessary launching platforms on the ground, for example, in Ukraine? Maybe they will be launched some different way. We have no idea, but it's a different question. So Russians are currently, according to the ISW, are conducting the campaign of the reflexive control that is aimed at not allowing those missiles to be delivered to Ukraine. So you probably see Putin and a lot of terror Russian politicians talking about it all the time. They say that it will be an escalation, it will be a third world war. The Tomahawks can carry nuclear warheads, so we will also equip our missiles with nuclear warheads. We will launch nuclear missiles at Brussels, at London, at Paris. One thing you gotta know, my dear friends, when the terror Russians are saying that they will be striking that they will be striking European or Western cities with their missiles, they 100% they will not be doing that. Why? Because they don't want to kill their kids living and studying in the European cities, because there's plenty of Russian oligarchs, Russian elites with their kids, with their wives, living in Italy, Salerno, living in North Rhine-Westphalia, living in different places of Europe, Brussels, Paris, of course. There's so many Russian families of the Russian oligarchs live and study in Paris. Putin's kids were basically born, for example, in Switzerland, right? Recently, oppositionist Russian media published information about Putin's kids. They were born in Switzerland. They don't like to live in Russia because they understand that it's just like a hole. The only thing they can take from that hole is basically oil and money. They don't need anything else. And that is why when they start threatening you that they will be striking those cities, those countries of civilized West with their missiles, their I don't know, meteorites, lasers, satellites, and everything else, they will never do that because they don't want to kill their own kids, their wives, and their relatives living there. That's easy explanation, all right? How's your German coming along? My German, oh my God. Es ist gut, okay. Es ist gut. Ich habe viele Practice mit meiner Freundin und it will be better, I promise. But I need more practice. Actually, my friend Alex is so good to have, former German subordinates, because I can talk to Alex from time to time, and he can basically assist me with German a bit. But yeah, I literally I need people to speak to. All right, I speak most of my time English language. I speak most of my time English language with my woman, and it's very shitty that actually I cannot talk more in German because I don't have much friends. Like, I can harass people on the streets, okay. Sprechen Sie mit mir, bitte, alright, but they will call police. Which is a good opportunity to meet some of the local policemen. I think we will have a lot of things in common to discuss. So, returning to the updates, of course, they threatened a lot in the past, as you probably remember, when Russians were threatening the world with the nuclear apocalypse if they deliver HIMARS systems, if they deliver F-16s to Ukraine, if they deliver other weaponry. But Russians lie a lot, generally, okay? Claire says, "Hi Starsky, I hope you will rally to the team with the 2 Jonathan Marathon fundraising I will definitely love to do that, absolutely. Move to the Netherlands. We don't mind speaking English. My dear friends, I absolutely love Netherlands. Oh my god, I have so many friends there. Martin and everybody else, and I would love to, but I will stay here. I gotta confess, I started already enjoying and actually admiring German people so much, like generally German society, not necessarily like native German people, but generally the society here, because like we have so much in common. It fits my mentality so well. They have plenty of rules. I love rules. I'm a former military. I freaking love rules. You don't cross the street when there's a red light and stuff. You have to have 1,000 papers. You gotta show your Ausweis when you go to the toilet and things like that. I'm joking, but generally, I enjoy it. Seriously, I like it. But returning to the news, the Russians started spreading fakes about the armed forces of Ukraine using chemical weapons against the local population, which again is one of the proofs that Russians generally like to project so much. It's like they understand that they do shit, alright, that usually provokes some freaking insane reaction from the civilized public, and that is why they project that shit on other people. So they say that the armed forces of Ukraine, that one comes from the Center for Countering Disinformation in Ukraine. Okay, they compile a lot of such cases every single day. So the terrorists say that the armed forces of Ukraine are using poison against the local population, and Andrei Marochko, which, by the way, is one of the traitors who literally betrayed Ukraine, switched to the Russian side since the early years of this war. So he said that Ukrainian troops are disseminating, poison from drones over the peaceful population, and basically they die. I just don't know. Like it's so beautiful. Of course, when he said that, of course, he gave absolutely no evidence, not a slightest proof was given. At the same time, there's already 1,000, I think something like 5,000 or 6,000 documented cases of Russians actually using chemical weapons, and I'm talking combat chemical weapons against Ukrainian soldiers. And one of the updates is coming from Kherson, where Ukrainian TV channel Suspilne was hit by Russian artillery. Earlier this year, in like February, actually, our channel UATV was also hit by Russian Iskanders 2 times, guys. They hit our office 2 times. That's absolutely insane. That's like one of the reasons why we don't really have that big fancy studio anymore at UATV, the one that we used to have. But that just shows how much they are afraid of people who literally debunk their lies, who deliver the actual information to the international community and talk about their despicable war crimes. All right. Morning, Martin from the UK. Hello, much love to the beautiful United Kingdom. I hope everything is going well, especially in Cardiff. All right. I hope that people in Cardiff are safe and well fed. Hi and cheers all together from Bavaria. Hello, Alexander. So good to see you. I have like 5 kilograms of smoked pork still in my fridge, and I'm munching on it every single day. Angelica, I swear, I'm working hard to finish it. If you want to avoid being targeted by Russia, you need to disguise your building as a legitimate military target. Newman is absolutely right here. So, another Russian cringe, which is like a case of the Russian disinformation, but I will say that this one deserves to go straight to the segment of the Russian cringe. So the Russians, in their KPRU, it's Komsomolskaya Pravda newspaper in the terrorist federation. So what they say is that Ukrainians are picking up the Russian drones, repair them, and send them to Europe. Which else provocations the West is preparing against Russia? That is just so beautiful, literally. And also the Russia Today, the state-funded Russian propagandist channel, they also say that the Tomahawks coming from the United States can already be on the territory of Ukraine. There is insiders information coming from Poland that some cargo that was delivered from there, its shape and its markings reminded the Tomahawks. The Russian so-called military expert Anatoly Matvichuk stated to the terrorist federation. That is so cool. But switching to the bad news, to good news that I think we all expect to see and hear in this stream. Yesterday, a bunch of good Ukrainian drones visited Terror Russia again. Hello, Ian. It's very, very good to see you. And it wasn't me. Hello. As always, oh my god, I'm blessed to have you here on my stream, my friends. So a bunch of good Ukrainian drones visited Terror Russia one more time, and this time a lot of high-speed Ukrainian drones. I believe the Morok variation. Morok is translated as the gloom, all right? So this type of drone was used. Let's check it out. They are freaking fast.
Вот он. Ох, ебать!
Yeah, I agree. And these drones were flying towards beautiful Russian Voronezh, all right? Another update coming from the Terror Russia says that the Russian citizens may be banned from having tourist trips to Turkey, Montenegro, and other countries of NATO that support Ukraine. The individuals who came up with this initiative say that such a measure will help to avoid transferring the money to the Russian enemies, will protect the Russian citizens from possible arrests and recruitment, and ideological pressure behind the border, and also will help improve internal tourism. The initiative was already delivered to the Russian Gosduma, the Terror Russian parliament. This is so beautiful. First of all, the Russians were going abroad. They were going to the despicable Turkey, the NATO states, every single year, and they don't care. They can say whatever they want about NATO. NATO sucks, NATO Nazi, gay Satanist. At the same time, they literally go to Italy, to Spain, they go to Turkey, that's like their favorite spot. And by the way, if you think about going to Turkey, go to like its western coast, all right? That one is good. Okay, there's a lot of actually Europeans, like I'm telling this to Europeans myself, but most of Europeans, if you didn't know, prefer to go to like western coast of Turkey. The Terror Russians mostly prefer like southern coast, so don't go to the southern coast if you don't want to see them like jumping into the empty pools drunk 9 a.m. in the morning. I saw it fucking myself, and they sit in the like 9 a.m. they sit in a freaking restaurant drinking vodka and cursing their kids, all right, with words that I'm afraid to even speak out on the live stream. International tourism. I don't know, sir. It already sounds funny. I agree on that. The internal tourism in Russia, that is already a joke by itself, because where to go in Russia? Taiga, tundra. I don't know. They don't have much beaches. If you want to travel somewhere to like deep Russia, you will not be impressed with all the shit that takes place there. The only place actually, Ian says Sochi, but Sochi is also full of all sorts of goons. All right. So the Russian internal tourism, that's quite interesting. I think actually that they will rather go to like North Korea. The other day they published a lot of pictures from North Korean beaches, and one thing that I noticed on those pictures, the streets are clean, they are like, decayed big time, of course, since they were not repaired or renovated since like 50s, but they're still clean and everything else. But one thing I noticed on those pictures of Russian tourists in North Korea is that basically there's like the streets are empty, the beaches are empty, the restaurants are empty, there's no people there, all right? And it was kind of suspicious, like the Russian tourists with like champagne and beer, resting on the beach, and like you look 5 kilometers there, you look 5 kilometers there, there's plenty of lights and stuff. The beaches are freaking empty. There's no people at all. Apparently, North Koreans are hesitant of allowing their citizens to go to beaches because they're afraid that they will swim away. All right. And also, Claire says that's why they want Crimea. Absolutely, Crimea was Ukrainian pearl of international tourism. Hello to the beautiful Tokyo, Japan. I've heard that you have a new prime minister, a new female prime minister, right? Congratulations with that. It's really cool to know. For some reason, for example, when you watch anime like Ghost in the Shell, for example, the prime minister in Japan is always a woman. Yeah, but this is, I think, the first case. What about Vladivostok? So, Vladivostok, if you want to go to Vladivostok, it's closer to Canada than it is to Europe, actually. Vladivostok is very, very far away. It's not really a warm place, alright, because it's still in like freaking Thundra Circle or something like that. Vladivostok sucks, okay? Like, basically, when you take a look at their territory, generally speaking, it sucks. You go 50 kilometers away from Moscow or like St. Petersburg, and the civilization basically stops there, okay? And even if it's like present in different random spots, it's only about those spots. It's not about people. So be careful, be extremely careful. We can go to Vladivostok. I promise. All right. After the terrorist regime is collapsed, I will definitely go to Vladivostok because I want to see people like Sanction Divan, in his motherland, drink some proper German beer together and things like that. But before it happens, the only way you can travel to Vladivostok is literally with at least a division of Bundeswehr or French gendarmes or Italian carabinieri with a whole battalion of long-range artillery like MLRS and armed with a flamethrower. That's like basically the only way you can travel there at this point. Switching to our updates, this one goes straight to the Russian cringe. So Putin immediately and all of a sudden decided to gather a Russian Defense Council, Defense and Security Council, on his birthday. So Putin bragged that they liberated, but actually captured 5,000 square kilometers and 219 Ukrainian settlements in my ass. Okay, in my ass. He also expressed his gratitude to the terror Russian industry for providing for the army, for supporting the army, and that is when he called the decisions to invade Ukraine, burn 1 million of his people, his Russian slaves, a proper and timely thing. So that was kind of cringy, but even cringier thing happened later because he's 73 years old, right? And he doesn't look that old because he uses plenty of Botox. Everybody knows that. He's so tiny. My God, I bet for this episode they collected the shortest the shortest terror Russian serviceman available. He went to Petropavlovsk Cathedral, which is the place where Russians keep the bones and remains of all of their terror Russian tsars. He met the Russian terrorists there in the Petropavlovsk Cathedral and said, I decided to start this meeting, basically to start his birthday celebration from here, because this is the place where the people who were making who were doing the modern Russia are resting, right? And apparently the the old dude is already preparing to find his place among those, all right? And that is basically the reason why he decided to celebrate his birthday among the graves. That's absolutely Russia style, because again, Russia is generally the way to characterize Russia is by quoting one of the Russian famous anonymous people on the internet who said that Russia is basically a chaos of shit and death, and that's basically it. All right, they have some freaking unexplainable urge to surround themselves with dead, with like that freaking dried fish in that mausoleum on the Red Square called Lenin and shit like that. Why do they do that? Why do they worship the death, worship that freaking death cult, like, I don't know, like in the Aztec Empire or something like that? That is absolutely crazy, but that's again some of the things that make Russians basically themselves. This one is not really related to Ukraine, but this one is just to cheer you up, my friends. So, there is a very, very cool town of Juli in Peru, in South America. Juli. Okay, I should explain this one because, like in Russian language, sometimes in Ukrainian language too, Juli is kind of why the fuck? Like, why the fuck? Like, for example, your friend does some crazy shit, all right? For example, your friend drinks like a window cleaning fluid, and you say, "Juli, did you do that?" You know, like, why the hell did you do that? So the city of Juli, it's a beautiful name. I love it already. In the city of Juli, a priest, Ciro Kispelopes, decided to resign after the Vatican launched an investigation. And the reason for that investigation was that he accidentally sent his spicy pictures and videos that were meant to be sent to his lovers. So he accidentally sent it to his maid, to his cleaning lady, who after that who reported this to the higher authorities. And according to the investigation that was conducted by the Vatican, this amazing man had 17 lovers, including one nun. I think I should really work in a different place. All right, I think my life is just like wrong, like what I'm doing here. I should have started like learning theology. When you look at it, all right. Despite the people that I completely love and respect, there is Andrei Stepanov from Poland. He's chief of the Protestant Church in Warsaw. He has my absolutely enormous respect. He's one of my probably best friends in Poland, besides Bogdan, by the way. Bogdan, I really hope that you're watching us too. Like, I have a lot of friends among, priests. But at the same time, like, for example, when you take a look at Russian, like Moscow Patriarchate, the dudes wearing such, white clothes because like they look round, generally speaking. People who have like a humble way of living, like holy people who pray, you rarely see them looking like they eat evil forces, all right, instead of like removing them. It turns out that looks like they eat the sinners, all right, on breakfast and dinner as well. It's crazy. And they also drive like the most expensive cars, Mercedes, like Bugatti and stuff like that. What the hell? And then like, well, and I can understand, like when you are a priest, of course you have to isolate yourself from a lot of things that are very typical and usual for common people like me and you, all right? Like good food, sex, relations, and everything else. But it's a very, very big challenge for human being, all right? Because we're human being, we're made of like flesh and blood and everything else. That is a huge challenge for us. Not a lot of people can actually withstand this, all right? Withstand this challenge, which again, I can completely understand as a human being. But all at the same time, like, yeah, temptations. Thank you so much, Steve. But at the same time, like, few of those guys, they literally, they use like all the opportunities. They literally change their suffering into their joy, just like that. That priest, he's like, I don't even know how to describe him. I don't necessarily like what he did there. All right, because like 17 lovers. Are you freaking kidding me? That's just insane. So it's like either I'm not doing the right job or like he's not on his place. In Belgrade Oblast, a missile hit a Russian sport complex. So you saw Ukrainian drones, right, flying towards Voronezh, towards other places. Also, I think that we hit the terror Russian power producing facility one more time. But at the same time, this place was hit by missile, as it is reported by the Russian sources, which means that most probably it was Russian air defense missile, right? So they report about 3 Russian sportsmen becoming better people. And also we have an update coming from Ukrainian Air Force, who report that out of 883 Russian drones launched at Ukraine tonight, 154 were successfully shot down. And also 22 Russian drones hit targets at 11 locations. That might sound like a lot, but again, my dear friends, Ukraine, guys, our territory, currently the territory that is under the control of Ukrainian government is more than 500,000 of square kilometers. So it's very, very hard to kill us all with those missiles and Russian drones. 8th of October, it was a day when the first strike on the terror Russian Kerch Bridge was conducted by the SBU, by the legendary security service of Ukraine. According to the different estimates, the power of this explosion was equal to approximately 21 tons of TNT. Which basically turned the Russian Kerch Bridge into аварийная конструкция. Holy shit! Not only I have to speak more German, but also English apparently. Into basically a pile of rubbish, at least some section of it. But then the chief of the security service of Ukraine said, the God loves Trinity, and he kept, sticking to his promises. 17th of July 2023, There was a second attack on the Russian Crimean bridge using the Sea Baby drone, and 3rd of June 2025, the underwater, the subsurface explosion damaged one of the pylons of this bridge. One thing that I still like, I'm not surprised, but it keeps me, keeps me convinced basically that Russian terrorists are literally just a nation of war criminals, is that Russians keep striking the food producing facilities in Ukraine. Can you get your mods to AI some pink flamingos on that bridge? I think Ellie can do that 100%, Steve. So yesterday the terrorist federation hit the enterprise that belonged to some of the biggest Ukrainian manufacturer of food made from hummus. Just recently, like a couple of days ago, you remember we had this update coming from, I think it was in Kharkiv, where Russian terrorists actually hit some huge Ukrainian pig farm, literally killing thousands of unfortunate animals. And this time they hit the enterprise that produced hummus. And basically what they do, they make, those, I don't have anything to demonstrate, like fast food, like, like you have noodles that you pour the hot water inside, and in like 5 minutes or so you have, like, for example, hot noodles. They do the same with hummus. You buy like this paper cup with hummus, you pour water inside, and 5 minutes and it's ready. Very cool, very fast, and they hit this one. What was the purpose? Were Ukrainian soldiers deployed there? Were they working on the production lines? Of course not. But the Russian terrorists are known for committing terrorist attacks. It's not a surprising fact. And also Russians are known for committing the act of artificial famine in Ukraine in 1932-1933, which was one of the 3 Holodomors, actually, that they committed in Ukraine, killing millions of Ukrainians. And genetically, apparently, they remember that that is like one of the ways they can use to murder more Ukrainians, with hunger, with famine. So the hummus is very good in Ukraine. It usually has paprika and some chickpeas on top. Croupier, like most of food in Ukraine, is very good, right? Like most of it. According to the monitoring channels, the refinery in the temporarily occupied Feodosia, in the temporarily occupied Crimea, is still burning. So it's been like 3 days already, 3.5, and the oil refinery, the oil tanks there that are currently used by the Russian terrorists, they keep burning after a successful strike. We have some very interesting research coming from the OSINT reporters and OSINT investigators. According to them, the Russians basically have 0 good combat-worthy tanks as of today. We can see the numbers. All right, let me. Shit, how do I do that? So first of all, I will remove this. Okay, so you could see it better. Okay. So as of now, the Russian terrorists Why am I doing this stuff? I don't know what am I doing with this computer. Damn it. At this point, they don't have good combat-worthy tanks because their storages were depleted, the tanks were burned, etc. In bad condition, they still have quite a few. They have approximately 1,656 tanks, which is kind of a lot, but 60% of those tanks cannot be restored practically. And we're talking about T-64, T-72, Ural 80, 80, UDA. They cannot restore them practically. The rest, they have a lot of old post-war junk like T-55. They have 15 of them. They have 377 pieces of T-62. They have 292 T-72B, and in total, at this point, Terror Russian Federation is only left with 684 tanks. These tanks can be restored, basically. They can be restored a bit slower than tanks that were stored in good condition, and in a very, very bad condition, they have 1,231 additional tanks. Those tanks cannot be restored, they can move, they are basically dead. So it doesn't mean that the Russian terrorists don't have tanks anymore. According to the All-Seaters, they have them, but they keep them saved because they're trying to relate the possible losses with the new tanks coming from those storages, and basically the stream of the Russian tanks is getting drier and drier and drier. Yeah, they also say that those are centers that in comments there will be a lot of discussions about that nowadays you don't need tanks. But at the same time, we should all remember that in order to make it possible for Russian terrorists to literally walk to our positions through the tree lines or drive to our positions on motorbikes and Chinese golf carts today, it took years of a very, very hard labor of Ukrainian defenders to eliminate those tanks, to literally burn those thousands and thousands of Terror Russian tanks to ashes. And that's one of the reasons why nowadays we can see those, so-called small groups of Russian infantry, basically like 3-5 Russian convicts, just literally walking towards their death every single day before getting obliterated by Ukrainian drones on the front lines. That's the direct result of Ukrainian defenders incessantly eliminating and burning Russian tanks every single day. So we have some good news. Turns out that the Russian storage of all that old Soviet junk is basically not never-ending. It's absolutely limited. The orcs were laughing, only in 2024, like last year. They were laughing there in the comments, saying our tanks, come on. Today we don't see Russians using tanks a lot. All right, so we see just very, very rare cases of Russians actually using their tanks. Actually, Russians use more of their air defenses nowadays than they lost their tanks. And that's very interesting to see, for example, in the footage, because they don't use them often. They prefer using those disposable golf carts and stuff. I think that they're saving their tanks for example, suppressing the possible uprising somewhere in Russia. All right, for example, if there's another mutiny, if there's a different Prigozhin decides to visit the Red Square with his tiny personal army. Maybe they are preserving those tanks to like defend the terror Russian capital, but they of course cannot defend it from Ukrainian drones. Okay, the next one. I hate this city, says this beautiful lady from Luhansk. She went from the occupied Luhansk to Russia, and she expected Russia to be this absolutely amazing, beautiful place, admired by Tucker Carlsons and other imbeciles. And turns out that she doesn't like it much. Let's listen to her. I hate this city. It doesn't matter how much I try to find the positive sides. But they just fucking don't exist. Not even mentioning the fact that as soon as you cross the border, as soon as you come to Russia, they already start treating you like shit, because generally if you saw like Russian people from time to time, you can tell that they are not the friendliest ones, all right? And generally speaking, that's true, because when you meet Russian people, they look at you as if you're like a piece of shit. I can confirm. And she says you can hear that everywhere, in the stores, in the establishments, at the cashier desks, everywhere. Welcome to the real life. What did you expect, lady? I don't know what your fucking name is, but did you expect Russia to be this absolutely amazing place full of people speaking the language of Pushkin and Dostoevsky? Fuck you, seriously. Fuck you. And she keeps nagging. They treat her like shit in the transport, everywhere. And she's surprised, you know. You lived your whole fucking life in Ukraine. With our culture, with our traditions, life wasn't perfect, I agree on that. But you are technically a Ukrainian fucking person, and you go there and you start nagging that they treat you like shit. What else did you expect? Oh my god, karma is a bitch. Eat it, you motherfucker. Seriously, I just enjoy watching these videos so much. She says the service in Russia is absolutely like it's an ass. She says like she is nagging about the services in the terrorist federation. Again, what did you expect? Some services in Ukraine that Russians considered impaired. All right, some services in Ukraine are better than around the world. You can have your whole life in your smartphone. You can order sushi at 2 a.m. in your fucking Luhansk, before the war, of course, and you will have them delivered very fast and they would taste well. What did you expect, my dear, technically Ukrainian, in the terrorist federation?
Приехала специально забрать документы на квартиру. Мне отказали в праве собственности.
She says, I came there to receive my documents on my property, on my apartment, and they banned me. They rejected my inquiry. They rejected my right of property.
Потому что потеряли мои документы, которые я подтвердила, о смене фамилии.
Because she changed her last name, and apparently those amazing people in the Russian establishment, they lost her documents. How good is that? Because, they don't fucking even care about it.
теперь я их подала заново, и теперь через время мне нужно специально опять сюда ехать, чтобы их забрать.
And so she sent her documents once again. She sent all of her paperwork, and after a while, she nags. She will have to go to the Terrorist Federation one more time to pick them again.
Да пошли вы все а?
She says, "Fuck you all." No, my dear friend, fuck you. All right, fuck you, because that's like this is what you deserve. Oh my god, 2014, I bet you were the one who ran to the fucking referendum and signed and voted it, alright? I bet you were there in 2014, waiting to be adopted by your beautiful terrorist motherland. You have it. Say thank you very much. Just swallow it and keep swallowing every day, all right? Because this is exactly what you deserve. And that is exactly, by the way, why you will not find even a single Ukrainian soberly, all right, who wants to be a part of the fucking terrorist Russian swamp, because it sucks, all right? There's nothing good there. There's nothing beautiful there. Basically, the terrorist Russian Federation, again, I repeat myself, but it's basically, you know, like this old, ugly, hairy ass, all right? Old, ugly, hairy, stinking ass covered with cellulite, which generally, when you look at it, like there's nothing amazing about it, all right? There's nothing good about it. But at the same time, the perverts are fucking loving it, all right? All right, I just had a message from Jonathan. My friend, if you're watching this, I will reply in just a minute. What else do we have? We have some really cool news coming from Ukraine. So, according to the reports, Ukrainian defenders are already using the new mini missile from the Belgian manufacturer Thales. I don't really want to butcher this name. But you can see this missile is kind of tiny. It costs a bit more than an interceptor drone for obvious reasons. But at the same time, it's more effective. So what do they have inside? Inside they have like this explosive charge. They have a lot of metal bearings surrounding it. So basically it's like a classic anti-air missile with fragmentation warhead, and it's just kind of small, all right? And it's specifically designed to intercept Russian drones, which we are already doing. So according to the report, Ukrainians are already intercepting those drones with those Belgian missiles. You can see something like a launch container. I don't know, looks really cool. Looks like mini MRLS to me. All right. So yeah, we have good news. And then we have more reports coming from Terror Russia. You can see new sanctions flying towards their targets on the Russian territory. Like the sound of this drone is absolutely amazing. It's interesting. In the comments, guys, you notice that this drone looks like Shahed. Actually, it doesn't, because if you look at the shape of it, it's quite different. It looks like basically, I don't know what to compare it to. First of all, that is not a delta wing, because Shaheds have delta wings, Herbiras as well. Delta wings increase the surface of the wing, which basically gives them more stability, more reliability in flight. Those that you can see, they don't have delta wings. That looks like a conventional wing that for some reason is located on the rear though, and they are much faster. If you check out the speed of the speed that this drone has, happily flying towards another Russian oil refinery or heating station, you can compare, for example, with slowly flying Russian Shaheds, and it's much faster, much harder to intercept as well. So we have some crazy footage coming from Belgorod where Russians hit their house with anti-air missile. How exactly it happened? Well, I'll tell you this. I know exactly how it happened. It happened in 2022 when a bunch of idiots decided to wear military uniforms and go to Ukraine. And basically, that's how it happened. 5 a.m. in the morning, a bunch of Russians decided to launch their missiles at sleeping Ukrainians, at peaceful Ukrainian cities in February 2022. And magically, but still according to the rules of karma and to the rules of justice, some of those missiles, only in a bit different shape and form, happily returned back to the fucking Belgorod. My dear friends, this is just the way karma works nowadays, alright? Of course, Russians will be saying that Ukrainians were striking Russian houses with like S-400 missiles, right? But as you can see, Ukrainians only launched drones and Russians basically hit their houses themselves. No matter what they will be saying, no matter what Douglas McGregor will be saying in his next episode on YouTube. All right. So what else do we have? Another one. The speed is good. The speed is good, I would say. I cannot tell exactly, or at least approximately what speed is that, but not bad. In Dzержinsk, a Russian military factory in Dzержinsk was attacked also overnight, and also we have explosions coming from Tula, Belgorod, Rostov. Because this update is as of yesterday, yesterday morning. So that power plant was actually attacked at night, all right? At night yesterday. There were explosions in Tula, in Belgorod, in Rostov Oblast, in Dzержинsk, Nizhegorодskaya Oblast of the Terrorist Federation. The local citizens heard at least 8 explosions in the area of the factory Sverdlov. This is some of the biggest terror Russian factories producing industrial explosives, and it's one of the... No, it's actually the only Russian factory producing octogen and hexagen. I'm not really sure how to translate it in human language, but octogen and hexagen, they are like explosive materials, explosives. So in Tula they also heard at least 5 explosives, and also in Belgorod and Stary Oskol they had cases of their own buildings hit by the Russian very own air defense. One thing, my friends, so like when they spot Ukrainian drones flying, for example, over their territory, and there's always those massive queues, that massive traffic in the Russian airports, because they ground their airplanes immediately, no one is flying, all the mobile networks are down, and Russian passengers going to like Turkey, for example, they start nagging big time, all right, because they don't allow their airplanes to fly when there's like air alerts. So one of the reasons they don't let them fly is because you see what's happening when their own air defense missiles hit their own buildings, all right? Imagine what will happen if they will have like a bunch of aircraft in the air at the same time, all right? Like a bunch of passenger aircraft. And basically because they don't really want to like, not like they care much, but they don't want people to be mad about their air defense literally shooting down their own airplanes. 5 explosives. I hear 1 explosive. Yeah, explosions, my friend. So that's the reason why, for example, they introduced that plan ковер, plan carpets. So another funny thing is that in Russian language, like standard operational procedure in the terrorist army, when they see Ukrainian drones, they always launch the so-called interception plan carpet, plan ковер, which means that the aircraft are grounded, mobile networks are down, and yada yada. So why carpet? Well, generally, when you take a look at, for example, homemade pictures of Russian citizens, you will understand why it's called carpet, basically, I think. Carpet on a wall is like, must be there, all right? In Feodosia, in Crimea, we can see this amazing photo. Guys, take a closer look at it, all right? So here in this picture, you can basically see the Russian reality nowadays, because on the background over there, you can see smoke coming from the Feodosia fuel refinery, all right, that was hit a couple of days ago, still burning. And on the foreground, you can see a queue of the Russian cars with like this message informing them that actually they have no 95th fuel anymore. And the 95th premium is something that they still have. But only not more than like 20 liters per car. So, also we have information coming from the Leningrad Oblast in the Terrorist Federation, where on the railway Stroganovo-Mshinskaya, Russian railway was blown up and a terror Russian train carrying military cargo basically got derailed, all right? That's talking about the sabotage, talking about Atesh, by the way. And by the way, I think that in Ukraine, there are already several like proposals to name several Ukrainian streets after Atesh, which I support with my both hands, right? This one is, oh my god, it's kind of gruesome, but it's kind of cool. So, the dude picked up Ukrainian drone, the Russian mama's electrician, all right? So he picked up Ukrainian drone and decided to change the fireware, you know, to turn it Russian, all right? And basically this is what happened. Of course, he decided to record everything. So, my dear friends, turned out that in Ukrainian drones, we have an extra mechanism for emergency detonation. And as soon as this, firmware, my friends. Thank you so much. So as soon as this music stopped playing, actually that system got activated. In his next video that I don't really want to show here because it's kind of gruesome, he basically reports that most probably like he won't be able to have a family anymore because he held the drone like above his lap, and his Johnson went out a window, to take a flight. Whoopsie. But on the other hand, guys, we saved the Russian gene pool from like another imbecile. I think Ukrainian drone actually helped them. All right. What else do we? My God, that video is kind of. Trust me, you don't want to see that one. Over the presidential palace in Finland, another drone was spotted on Tuesday. Report is coming as of Tuesday, as of yesterday. One of the civilian witnesses noticed a drone that was flying not far away. He went to talk to the people that were controlling this drone, and they said that they are tourists from the Chinese Hong Kong. So this person reported to the police because, as we all understand, we are a bit anxious about unknown drones flying in the area nowadays, right? Angela Merkel shared her memories about her participation in the peace talks, in the Minsk agreements, and yada yada. And Gabrielius Landsbergis, former external affairs minister of Lithuania, said that you can basically say what you want about Merkel's legacy, but at least she finally admitted whose side she was on. Absolutely. What else? European Union. Those are the missiles that we were talking about. European Union created a new beautiful missile to intercept terror Russian Shaheeds. Actually, it's really cool because the missile is comparably cheap. For example, why such anti-air missiles as, I don't know, let's say Stinger or whatever, why they are so expensive is because like the bigger range you have, the better. The bigger speed you have, the better. The bigger like altitude you can intercept the targets at, the better, of course, right? When you fly like very, very high above the ground, right? Of course, no manpad can intercept your aircraft. They have to use like different other measures, bigger missiles. Russians use S-300, S-400. We use Patriot missiles. We use Iris-T and yada yada. So the manpads, the better their specifications, like of course the bigger the price. More sensors, again, Haji, you're absolutely right. More sensors, more components, the price is growing, and of course more labor. Cheap missiles are good. Like you don't need to intercept Shaheeds 50 kilometers away. It's enough to have it inside like a couple of kilometers away and shoot them down using like tiny manpads, tiny interceptor missiles that still more expensive than interceptor drones, but they are much, much more reliable, right? And you can build plenty of them. And especially, the very fact that they are being produced on the territory of European Union, which has resources and funds to do that, makes me absolutely happy, because I know that they can be produced fast in big amounts and basically, Steve saying, has Australia supplied a Slinger system to test in battle. I haven't heard about this one, unfortunately. I didn't hear about the air defense, like missile air defense systems coming from Australia. No, I cannot tell you. But I will check it out. Yes, we can see another amazing picture coming from beautiful Feodosia. All right, my God, it's there you can see it. From beautiful Feodosia, there's basically a big cloud of smoke. It keeps burning. The fireworks keep making Russian citizens and citizens of the occupied Crimea extremely happy. What else? So, chief of the Ukrainian representatives in the Parliamentary Assembly of NATO, Yegor Chernev, shared the details that he knows regarding the possible deliveries of the Tomahawks to Ukraine. So he said that because the United States are considering this step as escalation, they will be trying to do this step by step. And guys, all right, escalation, I can understand everything. But on the other hand, when I will be ranting so bad. I will be fucking ranting so bad. Somebody is robbing you on the street, you call 911 and say, I have an emergency, I'm being robbed. They go, all right, please don't do anything, okay, because this will cause escalation, all right? Or, for example, your friends are being attacked, or, I don't know, you see someone getting, like, sexually abused on the street. You call 911, they say, please don't do anything, don't escalate, all right? All right, don't escalate. The policemen arrive and they just, they just stand like this looking. And you go like, why don't you do anything? We don't want to escalate the situation, they say. We don't want to, I don't know, save those kids in American schools from those active shooters because we are afraid of the escalation. What the fuck is this, like, mentality? I have no idea. Like, when you are attacked, you gotta fight back. When you see somebody attacked and you can help, you gotta help. All right? We are afraid that this might cause an escalation. What can Russia fucking do to you? Can Russia strike, I don't know, Florida? Can Russia strike Miami, where, like, I don't know, half of Russian oligarchs are hiding their sons from the Russian mobilization? Do you think that will happen? Or are you afraid that they will be launching, like, I don't know, drones over New York or Washington, hordes of unknown drones? Is that something that scares you? What sorts of, like, escalation are we talking about? Because when I hear escalation, when for example, Americans are talking about escalation, I hear some fucking Joe Rogan, squealing, behind his microphone. Oh my God, what if they strike us with nuclear weapons and everybody dies? Dear Ukrainians, please stop fighting back. You're making us anxious. What if Russians decide that you're escalating? Dear Ukrainians, please die finally. Because we don't want war here in the United States. Guys, the war is already happening. Russians are already having mutual military exercises with Cubans, and Russian ships carrying fucking nuclear weapons are already there in Cuba. Which is not far away from American territory, as far as I remember. That's much closer than Ukraine, trust me. And they are already there to make you fear. They are there to make you fear. And they make you fear through fucking hysteria spread by Joe Rogan, by, I don't know, other imbeciles, because they want to make you fear. The United States, that actually scared the fucking shit out of the whole Red Army for decades, the United States, the powerful leading world's economy, the strongest air force, actually two strongest air forces, the Air Force and the Navy Air Force, the country that sent people to the moon and made a lot of scientific discoveries. Russians were actually afraid of you because Russians lived their whole life in shit in the Soviet Union, and they still do. 2025. Oh, I don't know. I don't want to escalate Russians. Please talk more to Ukrainian people, all right? You need some psychological support. Talk more to us, all right? Let's I don't know, let's have a beer together. Let's talk about our fears. Let's I don't know, share our pain and show it a middle finger together, all right? Don't be scared, my friends. Okay, switching to our report. So, in the beginning, according to our representative, in the beginning the decision will be made, then there might be a delivery of several missiles with limited capabilities. Most probably they will be hitting only those targets that are allowed by the United States, and then we will have increased radius, increased range of those missiles, and increased number of strikes. Each of those steps, I will not criticize this one much because generally this sounds logical to me. So each of those steps is a condition to Putin, is either you stop the war or you will be hit by more and more American Tomahawk missiles. The decision is currently half taken, all right? It's already a big signal to Putin, and also it's a big, let's say, cards for Ukraine, all right, in terms of pressure against Putin. So also we have a confirmation that if the decision will be taken, the missiles will be delivered very fast and they will be launched from the ground platforms. So basically the United States have several, all right, not a lot of them, but several of those ground platforms, and theoretically they can be delivered to Ukraine. So, my dear friends, we already have confirmation that no, the Tomahawks, if they are in Ukraine, they will not be launched from like missile carrying ships. No, nothing like that. They will be launched from the ground platforms that might be theoretically delivered to Ukraine as well. But here's the thing, here where I will criticize this one, because in order to change something dramatically, all right, we need a lot of missiles, I'm talking hundreds, and we need them now. We need to launch them in big numbers against for example, all the Russian oil production facilities, all of the Russian oil refineries. Okay, that's the necessary condition to break Russia immediately, to break it fast, all right, to save more lives, to break it fast, effectively. We gotta strike like all of their oil refineries simultaneously and with proper amount of missiles to render all of those oil refineries useless, and basically this will end the war very, very fast. The problem with this is if we are delivered 2 missiles and the Russia is kind of scared, you know, like, all right, okay, like we launch 2 missiles, one gets intercepted, the other miraculously hits like a porch of a Russian military factory. Like, how much will it change? it will not change anything. And basically, Putin is speaking about this. In the Valdai, he's speaking that Tomahawks will not change anything for Ukraine. The horrible truth is that he's actually right about this, and I will explain you why. Because instead of supporting Ukraine with the goal of winning the war and making the terrorist federation at least succumb and stop its aggression, the White House is trying to send Putin different signals that Putin is not afraid of, all right? You can send Putin whatever. You can take Putin to Alaska and fly fucking 1,000 of B-2 stealth bombers over his head. Like, he doesn't give a damn, all right? Doesn't mean anything to him. You can send 10 Tomahawks to Ukraine and, I don't know, destroy an orchard in Putin's backyard. Doesn't mean anything, all right? Because Putin usually doesn't live there. He stays in his bunker, all right? He doesn't care. Like 10 Tomahawks for Ukraine, not enough. Another problem is that there is not that many Tomahawks, actually. So the demands of the US Navy are fulfilled, all right? The Tomahawks are being produced, like not a lot. We're not talking about hundreds of Tomahawks being produced like every single year. A bit less, from what I know, all right, from the open, according to the open sources. Ukraine needs hundreds of those missiles now, all right, and Ukraine needs absolute freedom of being able to use those missiles if we want to change something dramatically on the front line. That's why, on one hand, the Tomahawk is absolutely capable, amazing weapon with terrain-hugging flight profile and yada yada, half-ton explosives in its warheads. They can inflict enormous damage to the Russian terrorists, and basically Ukraine can use those missiles effectively to make Russia succumb and collapse. In theory. In reality, if Ukraine is provided with a bunch of missiles and Ukraine is not allowed to strike those targets that Ukraine requires to strike in Russia, it will not change much. Okay? Russians, like some of the Russian civilians, will be kind of scared eventually. We will strike some objects, maybe some more refineries, maybe some refineries further from Ukraine that we couldn't reach yet. Russians will make a lot of their propagandist TV shows saying, haha, you see? They launched their Tomahawks, we intercepted like 1,000 missiles already, all right? And nothing changed, and we are not afraid, and they can strike us as much as they like, but you see, our soldiers are bravely marching on the bodies of their comrades towards Washington and Alaska. That is 100% what they will do, all right? They will make a bunch of propagandist videos showing that Russia is not afraid. However, Russia is. Like, in fact, Russia is. And if Ukraine was actually given plenty of those missiles and given the opportunity to use them instantly, immediately, which is something that is needed to be done, actually, if you want to end this war very fast, all right? If you want to convince Putin immediately that, yeah, you gotta just fucking GTFO, all right, from Ukraine and pay us reparations, by the way. That will work if they provide just like a bunch of missiles because they are scared of escalation so much. Mabahandula, what do you think about it? Like, Mabahandula agrees with me because even though he's a goose, but he's a wise goose, all right? And I agree with Mabah Hamdullah. We need more missiles. We need more missiles. We need less restrictions. We need more support from leading countries that will provide us with not with just guarantees that we will help you fight as long as you need, but will actually help us. What the fuck is this fly doing here on my microphone? That will actually help us win. So that's the only condition. Be as dedicated to our victory as Ukrainians are, and everything will be fine. Here, we are in war, we hold our rules high, the other side fight without rules. Exactly, my friend. Why do we have rules, all right? Why do we have rules of engagement, all right, at the battlefield? It's because we are not Russians. It's because we are not terrorists. We, of course, have those rules. Russians can strike Ukrainian hospitals and kindergartens. We cannot allow ourselves do that because we are not motherfuckers. We are not the scum. And basically that's it. That is why we have rules. But at the same time, our hands are tied because Putin, having very, very rich criminal background and KGB background, the only language he understands is the language of violence. Putin was brought up, right, among the most cruel Russian bandits, the most cruel Russian criminals, all right? And the reason those criminals are alive today, and they are mostly in the Gosduma, in the Russian parliament, they are oligarchs, they have plenty of money. The only reason they are alive today is because they killed everyone else, all right? They killed less lucky criminals in Russia, and they had that war for decades there, literally kidnapping whole families, burying them in the concrete and things like that. That is the language Putin understands well. That is the language he only understands, all right? He doesn't understand signals. He doesn't understand those beautiful B-2 Spirit flying over his head. He doesn't understand that. He only understands this language, all right? For example, if someone did to him and his family what he did to other families, that he would understand, of course, easily, because that is a very comprehensive language for Russian criminals, for Putin, for his elites, for all those criminals and bandits. It's an obvious fact, but we are different than them. We cannot do that, all right? And frankly speaking, even myself, I would never do that because I would not respect myself after that. So we have this absolutely crazy resistance and actually struggle between the filthiest scum on earth, the most horrible evil you have seen since 1945, represented by the Terrorist Federation, and you have the rest of the civilized world that should not necessarily be more cruel and follow less rules. I think we can win if we are a bit more cunning, all right? That's it. That's all we need to do, and we can actually do that. Okay, Ukraine showcased several of its missiles. Oh, you gotta love this one. So here we have, on the bottom, is a new Neptune missile. So this one is the Neptune with the beer belly, as you can see. All right. So what the hell is that beer belly on this missile? That's actually 2 extra fuel tanks that increase its range up to 1,000 kilometers, I think, additionally. I might be wrong, but yeah. And of course, it carries a bit more explosives. It's currently the biggest, the toughest in the family, because there's 3 types of this missile available for Ukrainian defenders at this very moment. Like, it looks cool. It looks cool. I agree. Actually, very interesting decision to put those fuel tanks there, like in the middle of it. Like, it requires so much balance. I have no idea. And also, Ukrainians have showcased the drone/missile called Peklo, and Peklo is basically hell or inferno. I think inferno is a good translation for it, because Peklo in Ukraine is hell. All right. So this one is really cool. Peklo is drone/missile, so it's something in between. All right, it's like too fast to be called a drone, and it has many features that make it a bit more than a missile. But at the same time, it carries an impressive amount of explosives. We talked about this one, by the way, in some of my episodes on Friday. The weapons of war. And by the way, if you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe to the UATV, because we post a lot of very interesting shit there on Mondays, Fridays, and sometimes on Thursdays. Looks actually cool. I wish they kind of had just a bit more images to show off. There is like I'm not sure if this one is like that, like that tiny jet engine, or if it's like an air intake, because to me it looks like a jet engine that is installed on those kit aircraft, like, my god, is it subsonics? Subsonics, I think. Yeah, like this one, for example. Here you see, it's like a tiny jet engine that actually works really, really well. And I think we have the same solution installed on this drone as well. If you take a look at this part over here behind my picture on the screen, yeah, I think it looks like a tiny jet engine. I might be wrong though, but looks very nice, very nice. What else do we have? We have some incredible footage showing 55 Russian orcs taking rest, okay, hugging Ukrainian soil in the Donetsk region. All right, I'm not sure if you like me to show it to you. Maybe you're eating because it's already lunchtime, at least here in Germany. But it's impressive. They're taking rest, all right? They got tired. They got tired of taking Kyiv all the time, I think. Oh my god. So they got tired and they just fell asleep, all right? In Belgorod, unknown missiles have hit the electric substation Luch for the second time. And the local authorities say that they already have problems with the electricity there in Belgorod. Which exactly, like, blame Putin for that. Like, if you don't have electricity, blame Putin for that. If you're a citizen of the terrorist federation, write complaints to Putin, call him to stop this unnecessary war that would have never started if Trump was a president. Write to Putin, make video addresses, and generally nag about this to Putin himself, because he's the only one to blame. He's the only responsible person for that. With that, my dear friends and family, I think we can call this a day. 2 hours. Yesterday, I talked for like 2 hours and 30 minutes. Mirko in the chat told me that I'm crazy because his brain would definitely explode if he did it. All right, so I think it's a good time to call it a day and finally let you do your things, your job, taking a rest, having good lunch, maybe breakfast, like me. I want to share something really cool with you, actually, because since we are talking about food now. So the other day, my woman prepared something really cool. All right, where is it? Ah, here it is. So the other day, she was like, I think I gotta cook something, all right? I think I gotta cook, because I, like, generally, like, I can joke and laugh a lot, but generally, like, I'm, in the real life, I'm a grumpy person, naturally, right? And she's like, I know how to make you less grumpy. The only thing that brings you joy is the food, of course, so I will cook something. And we went out to, like, Lidl, and we bought chicken and some other stuff, and she prepared the tastiest chicken with rice and saffron you can imagine. Just look at this. I mean, what else can compare to, like, fresh chicken drumsticks and basmati rice, which should only be basmati, all right? And they are cooked with tomato. There's not much garlic, not like we do in Ukraine. Jenny says, I'm pretty sure Rick is part cyborg. 100%. I mean, like, he has probably like an accumulator instead of his liver, or I don't know. He's running on a charge. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, but returning to the beautiful drumsticks you can see on your screen, and of course I'm torturing you, I know that for sure. The basmati rice, the sauce was delicious. It contained a lot of saffron, according to the Persian traditions, of course, and it was just amazing. I ate all 4 drumsticks, I ate the bones, I ate everything, and then I ate the plate as well. So it was really, really good. In Ukraine, we, like, according to the Ukrainian tradition, we usually cook that stuff with sometimes sour cream, like we add sour cream on top. I think we also add a lot of garlic. Like, if the food tastes or smells like garlic, you can be sure that it's like Ukrainian, right? Like, the way to reveal the way to expose Ukrainian soldiers, or right at the position, is when you, like, walk into the forest and you suddenly feel this strong smell of garlic. That's basically, yeah, that's the truth. And we cook it with garlic, plenty of black pepper and stuff. Persian were very nice. They were not usual, but they were very, very nice. That's all I can say. I enjoyed. So, my dear friends, please have something nice yourself. Have something nice for me, all right? And also, we will see you later tomorrow early in the morning. I will have a guest on my stream. I hope you will like it, all right? And also, I consider streaming for the American audience as well, because, for example, when we stream in the morning, I miss Ellie, and also I don't want to torture Ellie because I want her to have more rest. But then in the evening, in the German evening, for example, we have more updates throughout the day. And I can talk about it in the evening. So please let me know if you like that one as well, so I could have more chance to talk to you guys live, and that would be absolutely fantastic in my opinion. Jilke, I think around 11 p.m. maybe, because generally speaking, I noticed that I don't sleep anyways. At night I work on something, and I don't sleep anyway, so I can basically stream as well. Like, why not? So yeah, my dear friends, thank you so much for your attention. Big thanks to all the moderators. Big thanks to every supporter of Ukraine. What you do is absolutely amazing. And we'll see you later. I will go and have something to eat. I will eat you, Mabahandula. I promise. So, goodbye and be safe. Bye-bye.